I feel like as a black man myself, I think that when creating black theatre, if you like, it's often a difficult subject to navigate the relationship between a father and son, as somewhat stereotypically within our community, it isn't a relationship that we see a lot of. Again, I say stereotypically quite heavily. I'm fortunate enough to have my father in my life, and I know so many are. So, how did you decide to broach and access that as a topic, as a relationship to explore? What made you go down that route instead of taking the somewhat more typical route of mother and son? Sorry, there's a lot of facets.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. I think I really wanted to explore manhood as well, and not just go down the stereotypical. I wanted to explore a young man actively trying to find his way rather than just being ignorant and then picking up when he's in his 40s and 50s. I kind of want it to be, because he's educated and he's seen his brother go down a different path, he wants to steer away from it, but also realises that what is this for? Because he's educated and he doesn't want to go down the path of his brother, he knows that something still isn't right. He's not flowing into. He feels like his idea of success, or the idea of success that he's being taught, he doesn't feel like that. He's like, what is it? Do I need to find a woman? Do I need to do something else to feel this level of success? Is it uni doesn't do that for me? So now, what is this success in this generation? Because your idea or the generation above is go to uni or get a job or whatever, and it's like, this don't feel right. I'm still facing obstacles. Something still isn't clicking. And because he's got his dad there, he's trying to find the answers through him, but he's also got generational things that he doesn't understand. So that's where there's a few clashes. Hope that answers it.
How important is it for you as a writer and for the actors to show the vulnerability in the characters?
I think vulnerability is a very, very good word to use, because the point when Jerome speaks to his dad, and as we would say in speech marks, flings it in his face that he didn't have a perfect start, and saw the Achilles heel and the weaknesses what his dad had, it is something where he's become confident to do that. But he's not disrespecting his daddy, he's just saying that he recognises this, But also, the vulnerability what the dad has is that he has one son incarcerated and one outside. And many families go through that, where all the children, not saying all of them, but most of them have been difficult. And the last one or two saying, I'm going to put all my heart and soul into this one. And it's too much pressure, And we don't really realise how much suicide happens between teenagers, especially those who are studying. We've got children who parents say, you've got to be a footballer, I don't care, kick that ball. They're telling them what they're going to be. It's too much pressure. Instead of working with your children, as a father, that's what I do, work with my children and see, their weaknesses and their strengths, and also liaise with them and have conversations with them. What we never had when I was growing up. So vulnerability is a good word to use, and I think to capture the father-son relationship, as opposed to what the gentleman said, the mother and son relationship, is something that's quite key, because a lot of fathers, as you know, are not there.
I was just going to say off that, I feel like vulnerability is something that we kind of play, I think, in this play, because it's not something like, I'm vulnerable, I'm going to show it. It's like, I'm vulnerable, I'm going to mask it. But the way Brian sort of enables us to have those moments of vulnerability through the spoken word, because I feel like there's a lot of scenes which are quite mundane, but a lot's coming out of them. And I think this poem is just like an honest like moment to just be like, this is my truth, this is how I'm feeling. And then let me just jump onto a different topic that's a little bit less traumatic. Do you know what I mean? So like the vulnerability side, they come and then they go. Or like I think the audience get to see a lot of the characters inner in the outer world, and you get to see that through the monologues that Jerome has and that Beresford has, the father, and also the mother. Like she's not a present physical figure, but you find out a lot about her through her little speech too, and how much impact and how vulnerable she was at the moments of her death. And I think that was very key for Ryan to put into the script, because it also shapes Jerome's character and the sort of upbringing that he's had, and what it makes him and his vulnerability too.
My question is about intergenerational conversations, and I'm just wondering, I was just struck by, we were asked the question about what's the message, and there was something about like, the expectations that each generation has, and I'm just wondering from each of you on the stage, through this play, what's your reflections now about having a conversation with different generations? What have you learned? Because there's lots of unspoken things, isn't there?
Yeah, the thing what I was trying to deal with, because in real life he could be my son, and on the page, just be honest, and on the page the numbers looks higher than looking at us as individuals. So also, I'm first generation born here. So I was always choosing, and when we have more time in the future, how much English I speak and how much Jamaican patois I speak. Because I probably would speak English like as I'm speaking now, and when I'm vexed and angry, would I tell him about him? As we do, or get stronger in my Birmingham accent or whatever. So that is something I would investigate and try to build more into my character.
Yeah, with myself, because I'm similar. So for me, with my family, I'm supposed to be second generation, but based on certain things, they treat me as if I'm first. But everyone else that's like my first cousin, like in the 50s, it's like so mad. But what I noticed is the difference between my parents and a lot of my friends' parents, and it made me start thinking, ooh, how does this impact Jerome? Because for me, I've always been the youngest out of the siblings, but for my friends, they're always the oldest. So it's like looking at the two Jamaican cultures, because what I'm brought up on is different to what a lot of my friends would be brought up on. And thinking about Jerome being the younger one, it was nice to actually like flip my understanding and see how it works from being the youngest, but being a second generation. So if that answers, cool.
I can't remember the question.
Oh, it's about intergenerational.
Intergenerational.
What you learned about.
Oh, what I learned. Just more conversations are needed. It doesn't have to be deep or, upsetting. I think even just like a few years ago, I had a conversation with my dad just about his upbringing, but we never had any conversation prior to that. He didn't give me all the answers, but he was like, "Oh, that's interesting. I wonder how he moved forward with that." But I think sometimes we can look at our parents as like superheroes and they're not flawed. So, and we only take what they've shown us. But sometimes if we dig and figure out a couple of things, we're like, "Oh, that's maybe why she thinks or he thinks like that." So that's kind of what I learned. Just more conversation that's not just surface level or when things are going bad.